So if anybody has questions other than this aspect, we can get to those right after. I just wanted to review running reports and a couple other things in Accounttech. We have some new faces, so it doesn't hurt to review. So most of us would go to transaction plan to run reports, but we can also do these in Darwin, in the Citrix version of this. So I'm just going to go ahead and show you how to do that. When we run them in Darwin, we'd have a little bit more play with them. We can kind of pick some of the fields more so than we can in transaction plan. So to get started, I'm logged in here as my ASC role. And I'm just going to click on the reports tab. If you don't know already, there's this blue bar up here that you can right click and maximize. And that will bring your account to full screen. You're annoyed with it, like sometimes you have to drop and drag. So start by clicking reports. And then from the front desk access, and some of you may have different access in here, which also gives you access to different reports. So as the front desk user, this is what it's going to bring me to first. And they do go in alphabetical order. And you can see over here, it just starts with all reports. And then over here, it gives me subjects. And if you click this all reports, it's going to give you everything in these subjects. So sometimes it's easiest to just go to this bottom option first. If you're searching for a specific report, you can click into this contains box and say you want a pending, and it's going to bring up anything with a pending in the name of the report. Now, every other week, we get a report emailed to us, and those are set up through an email campaign. And every 2 weeks, it sends you a report of transactions that are pending in your office that are missing maybe the sales price, or they're just missing data. And being that our leadership team runs these reports quite often, the reason we sent those to you is to just in front of mind, and maybe to reach out to agents to collect some of that data. The one that is sent to you is this pending transaction missing data. Now, if you could just mute if you are not talking. Somebody's unmuted, I'm not sure. Go ahead and double check your things, and we're just going to keep going. So this pending transaction missing financial data right now is not working. If some of you, anybody tried to run it or got the email and tried to run it from the email, you get an error message. I do have it in with programming, but we're still waiting on an update for that. So I'm just going to go ahead and click it, because sometimes you can get the error message and still get it to send you the report. Now, when you double click this, it's going to bring up the parameters. And you're going to go ahead and you just search your company. Now, you should only be seeing what you have access to. And in this instance, I have my Glen Arbor Leland Science Bay office. I'll just go and pick Glen Arbor. You can search a specific person of an agent, or if there's a specific property. The agent and teams, you can add in, or you can do them without. In this case, we're just going to click all. If you want to do specific lead generation, if it's agent generated or office generated, you can pick one of those. Divisions we don't really do, and if you need to search an available column, say you want mortgage on there, you can hit search, and it's going to bring up any options. It's not an option in this report, but it is in another one that we can take a look at. If you need to clear them and you want to just pick your own, you can click this clear button. And then in here, I highly recommend when you're doing this in the reports to use this scroll bar and not your mouse, because oftentimes in the drop downs, it'll change those, which I've done a few times, and it just makes it easy for mistakes. So I do highly recommend using this scroll bar here. Now you can scroll down and this is what's going to be the columns of the report. So anything that's checked, it's going to put data in those columns as long as there's data in the property record. Now, as you can see, this is where the importance of getting that information from the closing cover sheet and putting it in the system. If we don't have it in the system, we can't run the report and collect the data. So you're going to see, where the importance of adding some of this stuff is, the email addresses, the mortgage companies, the title companies, and so forth. So now I have kind of my my company and office and agent data up there, and now I'm just going to pick the columns I want. These are pre-set up, and some of them we use and some of them we don't. So I just uncheck the ones that we don't use. For instance, this margin, we don't really use anything with margins. Quite frankly, not even entirely sure what they mean, but I'm just going to go ahead and remove that. We'll keep the AGCI and the net. Maybe we want the sides, and let's also do volume. Now this one down here, I'm going to pick the office. And now if you have more than one office, this may become important, but we'll also see that down by the grouping. And then it's going to put the agent. And now these are just going to be columns. So you'll see that data filled in a column. I don't need necessarily the commission price because I have the selling price, but if you get a lot that have seller concessions or anything on it, that may be a column you want. I'm going to uncheck lead gen. Everything else looks good. Maybe I don't need pending date. And probably don't need the source. And then you can come here and it's going to group it first by the office and then by the agent. If you want to switch those, it does give you a few options. And then you just hit preview. Keep in mind, we already know there's an error with this one, but sometimes once it's, you get the error message, you can hit this send email and you send it to yourself. And sometimes that works instead. I already know there's a known issue with this one, so I'm just going to continue on. Any questions about the report so far? About running reports or picking? And I have another one open. Okay. So that, I'm just clicking into my other profile because I've got this one running in the background with the report. It does take a few minutes, so I'm just going to keep going. So on that note, we just ran that pending transaction missing financial data. So you don't always have to wait for that report to be sent to you. You can actually run it yourself if you want to do it every Monday or maybe every somebody's jamming. It's like the old music, maybe. But we will just keep going. There you go, Karen. All right, so there was one more report I do want to show you, and this is the one that the managers are running, or the managers are receiving, and this one's going to show them transaction fees, as well as the title company and the mortgage company they're using. Now, we know that we are assisting managers with, recruiting agents to use Woodland Title or anything like that. That does help the bottom dollar of the office. So if it's something that you want to follow and work with the agents on some of that stuff, that report is under the, it's a pending report. And I just run the pending transactions by agent. So again, you can just double click this one. And then we did have them, and this one you do need to pick a date range. Now, if I want all of the pendings currently, I'm just going to click all. You can run it for last month, last year, and we did actually get an option ran, an option added, which is this year, or it's last year, year to date. So if you want to do a comparative of last year's numbers to this year's numbers so far, that's another option you can run to kind of compare the difference between the 2 years. Let's just go ahead and do all, and it's going to pre-fill my date range. Now the company, again, you're just going to pick your company, or if you want all of the ones maybe you have option access to. And let's just do Glen Arbor to try to keep it a little bit simpler and faster. Now, again, the status is, right now I'm running a pending report. So I'm going to pick my pending statuses. Now this is pending, it's ready to close. And I believe there is closed in field possibly in that one, but they all submit to Dash with the same Dash ID or Dash code. So they all fall under that pending status. Again, you can search a certain person or property. We're going to add the agents. You can really break this down, and perhaps maybe I just want the active agents, but at this point I still want to do all agents. So I'm just going to keep that as all. Now, the columns for this one were a little bit different, because what it does is it builds from Accounttech and it puts it in a column. Now we know that the transaction fee can be paid either by the agent, it's going to be collected on the list side, and possibly the buy side. So when we do go to run this report, there is 3 columns for that transaction fee. So I'm just going to show you how to collect all of those so that we know who's paying it and how much is collected. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of my company dollar margin because I don't need that one. We have AGCI, net, company dollar, volume. Let's take off the side. We have agent in there. We probably don't need the lead gen or the status because they're mostly, we already picked status in the beginning. So we're just going to leave that one. I don't need pending date, process date, or date change. I don't need the source, but if you sometimes want, sometimes the agents want a list of their pending deals or their closed deals and their buyer emails or their seller email. So this is another good option that you can provide your agents with info if they want to do thank you letters or anything like that. That's a good report to run. But now down here, you can see that, where is it? Sorry, it may not even be in this report. You know what, I apologize. I'm actually running a closed report, which is under my closings and not pendings. So I'm gonna do closings by agent really quick. This is where you're gonna find that mortgage option. It loads. I'm going to do all again, and you can see this one automatically goes to closed in process because I'm only doing that status. Just click. Glen Arbor, and then I'm going to click out of that. So when I scroll, it doesn't add stuff. Same thing with this, you can really dial it down. You can pick each transaction type if you want only the in-house ones or only your listings. Again, the status of the agent. And this one you can actually put in the service and the NAF fees if you want all of that information, even Schmidt Community Fund. But I don't really need that info here. So I'm going to take off pretty much a lot of this. Just to, I don't even company dollar, but here's the transaction fee. Now this transaction fee is going to be if the agent pays it. That's just plain transaction fee. We'll keep that on there and ABCI. We're going to keep our lists. We'll just do the bulk, the volume. Office, agent. And then you come down here to property. So that'll put my property address. I can put the close date if I want, but it's not necessary. I'm just going to keep going because under this people tab, this is where I find my mortgage company. Now, this is where it gets really important, the way that we're adding these into the property record, because I sometimes see them being added as a lender. And when we go to run this report, it won't pull the data for this one. So if you want to put the lender in there as well, we can do that. But typically we like it all added as the mortgage, and we want the mortgage company. And this also is an option that shows on your dashboard when it's missing. So the mortgage company is a required field to add. If you want to go as far as putting the name of the lender, you can do that as well. But we do please just ask that you put the mortgage company in. And there are ways to do it under the buyer. But that's also going to keep your dashboard clean as you add them in. Now, the title company on the list side, we also know that it can be different as the title company on the sell. Probably mostly seen in Michigan, but it's not that uncommon up here anyway. So I have those options. Now keep in mind, these are each going to be their own column. I do want to go just real quick because I have, and if anybody sees it, again, we can use the transaction fee cell. And then we have transaction fee list. So there's our transaction fees. There should be 3 of them. So this is if the listing side pays it, the buying side, and then the agent would be just the one that doesn't, it just says transaction fee. So I'm going to go ahead and preview, and we're going to take a look. And again, I grouped it by office and then agent. That's really helpful running like a company-wide or you have multiple offices. Again, this takes just a second to load. Actually, that wasn't too bad. So now we have our report. Easy thing to do with this is just send it to yourself in the email. I can expand it here. I cannot export it from Citrix. I actually have to send it to myself, and then I can save it as an Excel report or anything like that. Some reason it just does not allow you to export directly from Citrix like you can with Transaction Plan. So here is my report, and I just clicked this little plus at the top, and that gives me a more detailed property info. So here's where I can see my title company list, my title company cell. Now, if they're under the same record, you're going to see that all together. Other than that, you're probably going to see 2 line items of the same property if they're done the same under the same record. Or I'm sorry, under 2 records. So now you can see the title company, the list, the cell. I don't fill in lender, and it doesn't look like, well, we have some mortgage. When we get down a little bit further and you get some more, you can see that it was cash offer. So that's where you're seeing the importance of how we're putting this data in. And sometimes maybe we ask for specific ways that it's done or written. And it's really just for this reason. You can see that if we have the same title company, the way that it, and before, like when Julie's brought up putting stuff in all capital letters, it just makes it hard to read the reports when that's happening, or we don't want it to syndicate in a not proper fashion. We really want to keep that symmetry throughout all of the records. So like this instance right here, that's the same property, but you'll see two line items of data for that. Now, again, to go to the top, just to explain the transaction fee, this is if the agent pays it. This is the just plain transaction. This is when you're going to find it on the list side, and then you're going to find it on the sell side. And this just tells you, this kind of gives you the summary of all of the data within those properties. So that's just a little bit about reporting. Now, if I want to send this to myself, you just click send email and you type in your name. You can put a memo if you're not sending it to yourself, and I just click send. Now that will send me the email, and then I can actually export and save this property. If I go ahead and close and I have this all detailed and I had this all, specific report, you can always do run last launched report, and it's going to bring up the last report you just ran. So you can see it's my specific company, my specific office, and it's going to pull up the same info I just ran on that. So that's just a little shortcut. Accidentally close, or you're like, oh, I got this report, I ran it. Wait a minute, I don't really want my lender on there. I'm just going to go, you can hit run last report and just remove the one you want, and you don't have to go through all the work of dialing it down. So I could do that, and then I can preview. And it's going to give me a new report without that lender column. Any questions so far? And now I have this, and I can expand again. So that's how you run reports through Citrix. You still can do them through Transaction Plan, but sometimes I find them a little bit more pliable through the Citrix login. Any questions on that? How about any questions in general? Any specific questions? Concerns? Caroline, did you have something that you wanted?
I did. Maybe I'm just pushing in the wrong MLS, but I was wondering, I haven't been able to feed the MLS.
Okay.
Want to do it automatically.
So there's two ways. That's the point. You can, if it is our listing, we do want it to be pulled in from the MLS because it has all of that good data in there. As far as the listing ID, dimensions of rooms, property descriptions, all that good info. So if you do find that a property is missing, or you just it just went in the MLS and you want to add
Maybe it's too soon
to it and it hasn't quite fed over yet, there's two ways you can do it. You can do it with the pull and the push, or just do it from the property record itself. And the way you do that is you just click properties and you click new, and you're going to actually add it from feeds instead of manually. So then I just click property from feeds and click start. Now, which you can search the feed ID. That is one thing you will need to know is your MLS. Now you can type in the number or you can type in the name of it, and it'll find the right one. But you can see there's quite a bit of different MLS. In this case, we want Engler, and we want single family. Is that what it is, Caroline?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's exactly what it was.
In the system ID, this is the MLS number. So let's go ahead and...
It wouldn't take anything. That's what it was.
Some areas you're going to see that it actually has like an identifier on it. And I know Ohio does this specifically. And we can take a look at that in a second. Do you have it offhand, Caroline?
No. That was old.
Sometimes we do, who's the agent?
I believe it was Sandy Ellers.
Okay.
Offhand.
So I tend to use our product a little bit for some of these resources. And in this case, I'm choosing Moxie. Because Moxie does have a direct feed from the MLS. And I just go to manage, and then I just pull up the agent's name. And then from there, I can see that it was this agent. I just click into the agent. And if you click these three dots over here, you can do listings. And this is where I tend to get a lot of information from.
I don't, maybe it was.
So Caroline, what is the,
I don't remember. It was last week.
okay,
It was last week. It may have been next. That was, I think, was the problem, was I didn't know which one of the MLS was on from the list it was from.
okay, well,
Let me go from there.
what you would do is you would put the MLS number here and then you just click pull. It'll say then the property has been added successfully. And that means it's created a property record. If it says updated, that means it's already, it's updated a record that's already in the system. So that's one way to do it. And the other way is the dashboard on the pull and push. Same type of thing. You're going to pull it from the MLS. Most often, some people do use the API or Trestle. Most often MLS. The feed name, again, you just pick from your thing. Let's do an Ohio. I don't know what Ohio is. Anybody?
Yes, MLS.
What is it? Anybody know?
Yes, MLS.
Oh, yes, thank you. Not me if you see it. Oh, the residential. That's Sotheby's. So let's do we'll do this one. So now you can see it's asking for state and this is the same thing, use MLS ID. This is actually just it's not, you don't write it out. It's just the two abbreviations. In some cases it takes it lowercase, but I've found most often it has to be uppercase. No idea why it's so specific, but that is how I've got it. I often just do a pull and then make sure the property's record is good to go. And then I go manually submit it to Dash. But if you did want to do a pull and a push, you can just then select Dash down here. It'll pull, it'll give you results of the pull and then a result of the push. So that's the two ways to do that. Any questions on that?
No, it's perfect. It's exactly what I wanted.
And this is in chat. And let's
Perfect. Thank you.
So Michelle, yes. And all right, let's start with Michelle. So Michelle's asking if there's a report showing listings taken by agents during a certain month. So we can go back to reports. And you can do, are they active listings, Michelle? So let's just see, we'll use our all reports. Sometimes you just never know where they're going to be. So you can do an active listings report. And then I would just pick your time frame. As last month. You can do custom if you want, January 1900, because I'm sure there was a lot of listings back then. But you could do, if you wanted to do August, maybe the 1st to the 30th, just get like the 31st. And then the same thing, you can dial it down, or if you just want a few, well, I might have done the whole company. So this is what was taken, and then you can see your date range. Your report criteria is all going to be labeled up here. So if you forget what you ran or you're finding that there's errors, just double check your criteria. But this will give you the breakdown of your listings, or kind of a quite a bit of information there. And then again, you can just expand. It's like this one doesn't. Does that answer your question? Does that work, Michelle? All right. Home Coast. We have a new MLS seller, does not bring over the pending data as before. Things. Hi, Rose. So the data that is sent through some of those it differs by MLS. Some don't provide that, and some do. Some provide expiration dates, some don't.
Okay.
We can, if you just send me a list of, or the MLS or the feed name, we can take a look and see if the MLS provides it. And it could just possibly be a mapping thing that we just don't have mapped. So if you could just send me an email on that, we can definitely take a look at that.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Thanks.
Yeah. I do want to just kind of show you something really quick, because if you're confused about when I say these feed names, it's just how, let's do this one. It's how it's what feed was used for it to bring it in. And that did move, and it's now under the links tab. So if you're curious on which one this came in, because you want to refresh it, I would just click the links right here, and it does tell you right here the feed ID. So this is 179, which is Engler Commercial. If I want to refresh this, I can go ahead and I can type in 179, and it automatically puts in our MLS, and I just click pull. And that will refresh any information. For instance, if it went pending recently within the last couple of minutes and I want to put in my pending information, but it's still showing as active in Accounttech because it hasn't updated from the feed yet, you can use this refresh button. It is best to pull status and data like that from Accounttech, because if I were to just go change this to pending, the MLS may cancel it out, and then you're stuck doing the work again because it sees it as active and it's pending in this system, which maybe you've had that happen or not. But I do like to refresh it, and then it would come in as pending. Now you can
Jess,
update it instead of creating a new property. Yes.
we've always had stellar here in the Sunstar region,
Uh-huh.
and it's a hit or a miss, but I would say 80% of the time it does pull the pending date.
Okay.
So it could be maybe something in the programming on how it's pulling.
I'm wondering if it's the type. If you're finding that it's pulling for residentials and maybe not vacant land, it could just be the feed, because they do go by property type. So send me a couple examples, or if you see it happen again, just let me know and we can take a look. All right. If you want that report and you want both, that would be the statuses. So you want all listings, whether they're active or just pending. So let's take a look at reports. And I would just assume that would be under property. And I would maybe do basic listing and see if you can add in the status. So this one does have active. It looks like it has, you can check all. That's kind of, or well, I wouldn't do that. You're going to get all the canceled. I'd do active, ready to close, active or pending. Available is going to be like for leases, if you want closed and processed. And then this pending here is going to give you the pending. So these are all dash codes of pendings, and these are going to be dash codes of actives. Or you can do active or pending, but keep in mind, if it's in a ready to close status, it won't show in just pending, because there is a difference. Just something to keep in mind. So I would probably do this one, because that's going to cover all of those codes. Does that make sense? Okay. Any other questions? Those are really good questions. But as you dial down into these reports, you're going to see why it's important to have the stuff added a particular way. I know that it may seem like a very, nitpicky, but really it's just for this, these reporting purposes and such that we do ask for stuff certain ways. that's really all I have today. If anybody else has any questions, I'm also available. If you ever want to do a one-on-one, you can shoot me an email. We can set up screen sharing. But yeah, if you have any questions, just let me know. Thanks for everyone for joining, and hope you have a great rest of the week.
You
Thanks for
too.
doing this. This was
Mhm.
awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank
Very
you
informative.
very much.
Thanks, guys. See ya in a couple weeks.